Good morning. The Granite State went under the national spotlight last week as the President's Advisory Commission on Election Integrity met at the New Hampshire Institute of Politics at St. Anselm College. This was the first meeting of the commission outside of Washington, and it unfolded under a cloud of suspicion. The commission's vice chair alleging that the fact that 6,500 people voted here in the 2016 election using an out-of-state driver's license was somehow proof of voter fraud. That allegation from Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach drew this response Tuesday from our own Secretary of State, Bill Gardner.
The problem that has occurred because of what you wrote is that the question of whether our election, as we have recorded it, is real and valid.
Joining us now is Secretary of State Bill Gardner, who went on to say it is real and it is valid. Secretary, thank you for joining us. Much appreciated. So no one ever really silences the critics anymore. I guess that's kind of an antiquated phrase in 2017. But do you feel you adequately stood up to Secretary Kobach on behalf of New Hampshire in that moment?
I didn't know what he was going to say, so I had to wait, and I certainly had to say something because he got it wrong. He got the law wrong. Our Supreme Court said that you could be domiciled in the state and be a non-resident. So you didn't have to be a resident. And that has been confusing for local officials in this state for the last several years. And from someone afar, it's not easy to understand that, because how can you be domiciled but not a resident, and what that actually means. So, but he obviously wanted to say what he said, and that was unfortunate that he did that, and unfortunate that it was jumping to conclusions, and that's exactly what the Vice President has said to us on 2 occasions, that let the facts come out and then search for the truth.
Yeah. And as I understand it, you're part of this commission for patriotic reasons, essentially. You believe that the exchange of ideas and having a dialogue is very important in this process and crucial essentially to the future of American governance. You're showing a lot of respect to the commission and Secretary Kobach. Do you feel that the respect is being reciprocated given what he did?
Well, we're just kind of getting to know each other on the commission. Some of the commission members I've worked with in the past, but I've been saying, give us a chance. You know, there is such a thing as the power of persuasion, and that means a great deal. And so people may be surprised at the end of this what actually happens, what decisions are made. And so to be prejudging and coming to conclusions is just not what this is supposed to be. And I wanted to remind everyone on the commission that that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and obviously the big headlines were that moment of confrontation and then this peripheral issue with another commission member, Hans von Spakovsky. But I think lost under that, in that third panel, there was a lot of very compelling information about voting security, not necessarily voting fraud, but how easy it is to manipulate some of these machines that we have involved here. And I think you would agree, it seems like that was something that people might have missed, but the commission members were listening, and a lot of them said they had their eyes open about it.
Absolutely, and that is something that we're going to be dealing with much more so in the future, because we had a little taste of it in this past presidential election, but these were 3 top computer scientists, cryptographers, cybersecurity, and afterwards several of the commission members were sort of taken aback that, wow, you know, we really ought to focus a lot more on this, because that is the future threat.
And as an aside to that, a lot of people are curious about what influence or interaction the Russians might have had with our voting processes in the United States in 2016. Was there any indication from your office that there was an attempt to hack or influence or infiltrate computers here in New Hampshire that involve election?
No, and what's interesting about that is the two states, Arizona and Illinois, that actually they were hacked, their voter database. The director of elections in Illinois, in front of the U.S. Senate a couple months ago, when he was asked, when did you first find out it was the Russians? And he looked at those senators and said, to this day, I've never been told it was the Russians. So, you know, there's a lot of unanswered questions out there, and that's why it's that last panel that we had, they really opened a vision for people that is going to be much more addressed in the future.
A lot of your fellow Democrats have been puzzled by this sort of line in the dialogue that you're bringing to this commission, that you draw this correlation between the expansion of the franchise and a reduction in voter participation. In some of them who are more critical, they say it almost sounds like you're saying the more people that vote, the worse it is. Is that accurate, or how would you characterize this? There's no one out there that wants more people to vote than I do. I've always wanted that. I'm proud of where New Hampshire is. And here's an example. When New Hampshire passed photo ID law in 2011, we had a presidential election a year later. That presidential election's turnout in New Hampshire, compared to the country as a whole, was greater than it had been in over a half a century. And then the next presidential election, this last one in 2016, we went even higher. We went from 14.2% higher than the country to 14.5% higher than the country. So we've had two presidential elections with photo ID, with both of them having higher turnouts going back over half a century compared to the rest of the country. So the statistical data, I mean, my point is that, you know, is the country, states, for a half a century, since the late 60s, have been trying to find more and more and more ways to make it easier to vote, believing that if you make it easier, then more people will do it. But that's not necessarily the result of making it easier. And I know it's counterintuitive and it sounds but the facts show that. And so all these new added ways of voting, early voting, no-fault absentee, when you have more moving parts, I like to keep elections simple. The simpler, the better. The fewer moving parts, the better, because that way you get fewer mistakes. When you have human beings actually conducting this, and in this state, over 6,000 are working at our polling places. So it's just when you increase the moving parts, you need to address security and safety as well. It's that seesaw, that balance. You don't want barriers to voting. You want it reasonably easy, but you also want people to believe that they can trust it, that it's honest and it's fair. And if you go in one direction more than the other, you're hurting that. And the idea of this commission is public confidence. What's public confidence? It's trust. People need trust because voting is fragile anyway. People think their votes don't matter. Not in this state, because we have a lot of close races. We have the closest U.S. Senate race ever. And every election we have close races. But trust is really important, and that's the public confidence. And if the public doesn't have it, then they lack the will to make the effort to actually vote. And so that's my point has been, let's not just be addressing one side of this equation, and the statistics will back that up. The American Journal of Political Science did a study that they released in 2014, and in that study, the result was that if you go to early voting, you can actually expect a decline in turnout. Now, how can that be? How can you make it easier? Well, it's just a human thing. You go early to beat the crowds. When you see on the news that there are crowds at early voting and some people are in line for 3 and 4 hours, it diminishes the election day, because if you miss it early, you think, well, if there were lines 3 hours, then what is it going to be on election days? So it's, and our statistics will show that, where we have been. The last two presidential elections, we were higher than the country
as a whole by 14.2 in 12 and 14.5 in 16. And people will say, well, that's because you're a battleground state now. Well, we were not a battleground state in the 50s and the 60s. And our turnouts in the 50s and 60s, just like the country as a whole, were considerably larger than they are today. When back in the 50s and 60s in New Hampshire, you had to have a 6-month residency requirement, you had to read sections of the Constitution, you had to pay a poll tax, and you only had limited days that you could actually register to vote. See where we have gone since then to today, and why is it that the turnout for the country in those 2 decades, the lowest turnout of the 5 presidential elections during those 2 decades was higher than the next 12 starting in 1972. Think that the highest turnout never got to 60% of the voting age population. 4 of the 5 in the 50s and 60s with all those barriers. African Americans it was made very difficult for them to participate, but look at the turnout. So to me, that's also something. We need to have a historical context and look at that, and that's why the first segment was about that, and that's why I wanted the person who had done a lot of work in the 70s to go back and compile that information, because we haven't seen that as a country. We haven't seen the historical, going back to the last half of the 20th century. We just have not, after 2008, 2012, 2016, because they've come up with different formulas now to judge this, and that's taken away history from us. And history, it's important to remember our history.
And no one has more historical context than you in state government. We appreciate the perspective you bring, and thank you for your time, Secretary.
You bet.
All right.